Hi guys, it's that time again. Welcome. I'm Kitty here. Short, short of week podcast where week sports and a little something about Red City himself. So thanks for coming along. This is episode 52 now, and we'll do what we do as we do in every episode. We'll jump right into our number 52 mentions. This is where we honor the people who wore the number 52. And, we'll start in the NFL. Before the recent rule change, numbers were kind of coinciding with position. If you were going to play a position, you had to wear a specific number. And so you might see a few linebackers and whatnot come your way. We'll see. You'll see what happens here. Number 52, best of the bunch, I think. Excuse me. Baltimore Ravens legend, Ray Lewis. He's a beast playing college ball at the University of Miami, earning third team All American before earning first team All American the very next season. That great play led to them getting drafted 26th overall in the 96 draft by the Baltimore Ravens. It was the inaugural year of the Ravens franchise, and Lewis was their second ever pick in franchise history. The Ravens selected Hall of Fame offensive lineman Jonathan Ogden with the fourth overall pick. So it's not a bad draft class to get Ogden and Lewis in the same first round. After a productive rookie season, Lewis really blossomed in his second, setting an NFL record for most solo tackles in one season with 156. That record still stands today. And he would make his first Pro Bowl, earning his first second team All Pro. He'd continue to dominate the middle linebacker position and was considered by many to be the best in the NFL. In the 2000 season, Ray Lewis led what many consider to be the best defensive unit of all time, debatable right up there with the 1985 Chicago Bears. This defense put fear into the opposition. They went all the way to the Super Bowl, where in Super Bowl 35 the Ravens would dominate the Giants and Ray Lewis would win Super Bowl MVP, giving the franchise obviously its first Super Bowl. Lewis would consistently stay amongst the best linebackers in the game, helping win their second Super Bowl for the Ravens when the Ravens edged out the 49ers in the Harbaugh Bowl. Ravens head coach John Harbaugh beat his brother 49ers coach Jim Harbaugh, who is now coaching the Chargers. But anywho, that second Super Bowl ring was the icing on the cake for Lewis's career. He'd retire after that game with one of the finest resumes for a middle linebacker. Lewis retired a 13-time Pro Bowler, 7 first-team All-Pros, 3 second-team All-Pros. He led the NFL in tackles on 3 different occasions, including that record-setting one. He was named the NFL Defensive Player of the Year 2 different occasions. Once in 2000 and again in 2003. He was named an NFL 2000s All-Decade Team, as well as the NFL 100th Anniversary Team. After retirement, he was inducted to the Ravens Ring of Honor, and he was voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2018 in his first year of eligibility. As well as that single season solo tackle record, Ray Lewis also holds NFL records for most career combined tackles at 2,059 and the most career tackles, solo tackles at 1,568. You can't mention the Hall of Fame career of Ray Lewis without mentioning that incident in which he was present while 2 people were stabbed to death. He was questioned and actually involved on murder charges. He wouldn't see any jail time of any kind, but his reputation was definitely not the same. Usually after the Super Bowl, the MVP says, "I'm going to Disney World." However, that phrase was given to Trent Dilfer. Disney wasn't wanting any of that at the time. But regardless, Ray Lewis should be remembered as one of the best middle linebackers of all time. He wasn't in trouble with anything he did there. It obviously went down a bad place, but this guy needs to have his name in there with one of the best ever to play. We'll jump to the offense side of the ball, not a linebacker. Next 52 is a legendary center, Mike Webster. Growing up in Wisconsin, he had never played football until his junior year because he was too busy choring on the farm. His coach had to commit to driving him home after practice in order for him to continue playing. Despite his late introduction to the game, he was a natural and ended up earning a scholarship to play at the University of Wisconsin. During this time, he was regarded as one of the best centers in the Big Ten, and that led to the Steelers drafting Webster in the 5th round of the '74 draft. He spent 2 seasons serving as a backup at guard while mentoring behind Ray Mansfield. Then he'd become the starting center in '76, and the amazing accolades would start from there. Steelers would win 4 Super Bowls in the '70s, and Webster and quarterback Terry Bradshaw formed one of the best-known quarterback pairings in NFL history. Webster would make 9 Pro Bowls, 6 first-team All-Pros, 2 second-team All-Pros, named to the '70s All-Decade Team and the '80s All-Decade Team, 75th Anniversary Team and the 100th Anniversary Team. Honored by the Steelers, being named to their all-time team. He's in the Steelers Hall of Honor as well as Pittsburgh Pro Hall of Fame. He's immortalized in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But the end of Webster's career is not a very happy one. He was proven to have been disabled before retiring from the NFL, and after retirement, he had amnesia, dementia, depression, and acute bone and muscular pain. He spent many years living out of his pickup truck or in train stations. Despite former teammates reaching out to help, he just would not take it. His old quarterback, Terry Bradshaw, regularly covered expenses for Webster and his family. He'd routinely disappear for weeks on ends, and it's said to have used electric shock weapons to help him sleep. Like, that is whack. His wife, Pamela, could not handle it anymore and divorced him, and he died of a heart attack just 6 months later at the age of 50. His brain was given up to science, and he was one of the first NFL players to be diagnosed with CTE, something we see even more and more in retired athletes of contact sports. And it's been said that at least 345 NFL players to be diagnosed after death with CTE. But man, what a sad ending to such a legendary career. But go back to the defensive side, to the linebacker position. This number two did more in 7.5 seasons than some guys would do in double that amount of time. I'm talking about Patrick Willis, fighter from childhood, growing up in poverty, and by the age of 10, worked full-time in the cotton fields. At the age of 17, he left the double-wide trailer park home with his siblings after his alcoholic father became more violent. He moved in with his high school basketball coach, and then he continued to blossom at the football stage and got a scholarship to play in the SEC at Ole Miss. He was just amazing his last year at Ole Miss. Tons of accolades. First team All-SEC, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, consensus All-American, Jack Lambert Trophy, the Dick Butkus Award. This led the San Francisco 49ers drafting him 11th overall in the '07 draft, and his impact was immediate and forceful, leading the NFL in tackles as a rookie on the way to winning NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. That same season, he made the Pro Bowl and was named First Team All-Pro, becoming the first defensive rookie from the 49ers to make the Pro Bowl since Ronnie Lott, episode 42, did it in 1981. The following season, Willis would finish second in tackles, making his second straight Pro Bowl. He'd make second team All-Pro, finishing one vote behind Carolina's John Beeson. But that would just motivate him. Go back to first team All-Pros, earning the recognition 4 straight years. He'd make another 5 Pro Bowls, giving him 7 and 8 seasons. He'd miss some time to deal with a nagging toe injury, so bad to the point that it was a leading contributor to Willis retiring at the young age of 30. That's crazy, retiring at 30. He was named in the 2010s All-Decade team, and he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, and just recently selected to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. One of the best linebackers the game has seen. It was just unfortunate we only got to see that for 8 seasons. We'll stick with dominant linebackers who spent their entire career with a franchise. Next 52 is Robert Brazel. Brazel was a beast at Jackson State, leading the which led to the Houston Oilers, drafting him in the 6th overall pick in the '75 draft. He'd be suiting up for new head coach, general manager Bum Phillips, you may remember with the cowboy hat. With that arrival, that meant changing the defense from a 4-3 to a 3-4, and this fit right into Brazile's playing style. Many say Lawrence Taylor was the prototype for pass-rushing outside linebackers, but some, including his former coach, said Brazile was the OG on the matter. Playing that system helped make him a star out of the game, right out of the gate, earning the nickname Dr. Doom. He'd win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and over the next 7 seasons, he'd make the Pro Bowl each one, also making 2 first-team All-Pros and 4 second-team. He was a key member of that Oilers team that went to back-to-back AFC Championships games. He was named to the '70s All-Decade team and enshrined in the Titans/Oilers Ring of Honor. He was also inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where he could have seen bigger numbers, much like Patrick Willis, but he retired at the age of 31. Some say it was a steep decline in productivity by the franchise, but Brazile said it was the death of his first wife, Cookie, in a car wreck that really made the decision for him to retire. Another 52, great linebacker and a personal favorite of mine. I'm talking about Clay Matthews, an absolute beast at USC, playing along fellow first-round picks Brian Cushing and Ray Maliaga to have one of the most dominant linebacking cores in college football. He'd be part of 3 Rose Bowl winning teams, which led to my Packers drafting him 26th overall in the 2009 draft. He'd have a great rookie campaign, was named as a Pro Bowl replacement for Lance Briggs, becoming the first Packers rookie to earn a Pro Bowl selection since James Lofton did it in '78. He finished 3rd in defensive rookie voting behind Brian Cushing. He did the rookie record for sacks in a season with 10. He blossomed into one of the best pass rushing linebackers in the league, making 3 straight Pro Bowls, 1 first-team All-Pro, 1 second-team All-Pro. In that first-team All-Pro season, the Packers went on a run to Super Bowl 45, where Matthews set a Packers postseason record with 3.5 sacks on the way to the big game. His big tackle on Rashard Mendenhall to cause a fumble on the first play of the fourth quarter really helped the Packers secure the win, to getting their fourth Super Bowl in franchise history. His 2013 season was played with an injured thumb. He was not as effective, but once he healed up, he'd make 3 more Pro Bowls, rocking his trademark long hair. He'd always stick out on that Green Bay defense. He plays last season in the NFL with the Rams before calling it a career, but I always think of him with the Packers. It was announced he'd join Aaron Kapman in the induction into the Packers Hall of Fame this August 29th, so that'll be a cool one to see. A great honor for those guys. I don't know if his accolades are enough to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but I'm glad he's getting the recognition with the Packers here. Last NFL player, it's not exactly a household name, Frank Gatzke. He didn't have your typical NFL career. He'd go to Marshall University, but he enlisted in the Army before the 42 season. And as America got involved with World War II, he got called into active duty, where he was sent in an infantry division to fight in the European theater known as World War II. He was part of the Normandy invasion. He returned from the war. The university went to, Marshall, no longer had a football team, so he joined Auburn, and after he graduated, he tried with the Cleveland Browns, who were part of the AAFC. He'd make the team and become one of the best centers of his generation, winning 4 AAFC championships before they'd merge with the NFL. The NFL, he'd make 4 first-team All-Pros and was part of 3 NFL championships in Cleveland. His final season, he joined the Lions, where he'd win his 4th championship. And Frank Gatzke would then get named the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he's honored in the Cleveland Browns Ring of Honor. We're going to leave the gridiron and go to the baseball diamond. First 52 that comes to the mind, the big man, the pitcher, CC Sabathia. Growing up in California, he was a great football player and a dominant pitcher, receiving a scholarship to play football at UCLA. But he signed a letter of intent to play at the University of Hawaii, play football and baseball. Except he'd say, you know what, I'm going straight to the league. So he'd go from high school to the majors, getting drafted in by the 20th overall pick by the Cleveland franchise. He'd play a few years in the farm system, and then at the age of 20, he'd begin his rookie season as the youngest player in the leagues, ending the season with 17-5 record. And he just finished behind Ichiro, episode 51, for the Rookie of the Year. You may remember Ichiro from last episode's Jersey Mentions. But the big left-hander was an ace in Cleveland. He'd make 3 All-Star games. His last full season in Cleveland, he won the AL Cy Young. Following season, Cleveland struggled a bit, and once they were out of contention, Sabathia was traded to the Brewers, where he'd continue to great in his short time there. He wasn't going to stick around, though. In that offseason, he signed a huge deal, 7-year, $161 million contract to join the Yankees, which was the largest contract for a pitcher at the time, quickly being surpassed. But that big man, he lived up to the contract. His 19 wins that season was a share with the MLB lead, alongside Felix Hernandez, Justin Verlander, and Adam Wainwright. In that postseason, Sabathia would pick up his first postseason victory, the ALCS against the Angels. He'd pitch lights out, winning MVP of the series. The Yankees rode that momentum, beating the Philadelphia Phillies for their 27th World Series championship. The next season, Sabathia would lead the MLB in wins again, making his first All-Star appearance with the Yankees. However, the Yankees would follow the Rangers in the postseason. As a Yankee, Sabathia would pick up 2 more All-Star appearances, and it's the last franchise he'd play for. When he retired, Sabathia was in the elite 3,000 strikeout club, finishing with 3,093, which is 18th all-time in MLB history, and one of only 3 left-handers to be in the club. He's also in there with Warren. He also won the Warren Spahn Award, which is for the best left-handed pitcher. He won that 3 years in a row. He looks like a literal shell of himself. After some health scares, he took some seriousness on his weight, and he's lost tons of it. He looks so much healthier. I think being in the 3,000 strikeout club should be enough to get this guy into the Hall of Fame. He's got to be, I think. We'll leave the diamond for the basketball court, starting with a player who I feel is not talked about enough nowadays, Jamal Wilkes. He'd play at UCLA for Coach John Wooden, was a member of the 2 NCAA championship winning teams, and part of that team that had won a record 88 consecutive games. 2-time consensus first-team All-American during his time there, leading to the Golden State Warriors selecting him 11th overall, where he'd briefly wear 41. Transition from college to the NBA, no issue for him, winning Rookie of the Year, All-Rookie First Team. He was an important piece of that Warriors team that would sweep the Washington Bullets in the NBA championship. He'd play 3 productive seasons with the Warriors, but he wasn't just good offensively. He'd also do it on the defensive end, making an all-star game and getting named the 2 all-defensive second teams. After his third season, though, he's like, I'm out. He's going to the Lakers. And that's the team I think most think of when they think of Wilkes. He'd make 2 more All-Star games there and was an important piece to 3 NBA championships in LA, bringing his career total to 4. He's one of the most important pieces of that Lakers team beating the Sixers in the 80s finals. We know Kareem got hurt, and everybody remembers and talks about Magic starting at center as a rookie and having one of the most memorable games of the NBA finals ever. We know Magic scored 42 points, 15 boards, and 7 assists while, like I said, starting at center for the injured Kareem. But many forget Jamal Wilkes scored 37 points and grabbed 10 boards in that game. Without that, I don't think Magic gets his moment. See what I did there? But struggling with injuries, Wilkes would play his last NBA season with the Clippers. He'd shock the franchise when he just retired out of nowhere, citing lack of playing time. Like I said, an underrated star who I don't think is talked about enough nowadays. But if you looked at his jump shot, you'd talk about that. It's unique for sure. He was inducted into the College Basketball Hall of Fame. His 52 is retired by the UCLA Bruins. His 52 is retired by the Lakers. Like I said, I got to put more respect on his name, as the kids say. But the next 52 in basketball world, big man Buck Williams. Great success at Maryland, and that led to the Nets selecting him 3rd overall in the 81 draft. He would start his NBA career emerging as one of the best young power forwards in the league, winning Rookie of the Year, helping the Nets win 20 more games in the year prior, which also got him named to the rookie first team. And he'd make an All-Star game. He'd make 2 more All-Star games as a Net and was named to the All-NBA second team his sophomore season. And throughout his time there, he was one of the best rebounders in the league, averaging 12 rebounds a game his first 7 seasons in the NBA. The one season was 11.9, but close enough. He'd also have 1 all-defensive second team in New Jersey. He would then get moved to the Trailblazers in a move to get former number 2 overall pick Sam Bowie. You might remember him as the player picked for Michael Jordan in that draft. With the Blazers, Williams was an important piece of some really good teams in Portland, especially on the defensive end, earning 2 defensive first-team selections and 1 more defensive second-team nod. His first 3 seasons in Portland, they went to the Western Conference Finals each time, and 2 of them they actually went to the finals. First, they'd follow the Pistons. The last trip, they'd meet some guy named Michael Jordan. You might remember the Shrug. But yeah, in the twilight of his career, Williams would go to the Knicks, play some big minutes to wrap up his career. He'd get his number 52 retired by the Nets, who are now in Brooklyn. Another very underrated player in his day. He was just the 7th person in NBA history to rack up more than 16,000 points and 13,000 boards. Another guy who I don't think gets talked about enough. We'll stick with another big man in the NBA, another guy to rock the 52, Brad Miller. Good career at Purdue, first player in school history to have 1,500 points, 800 rebounds, and 250 assists. Despite that, he'd go undrafted in the 98 draft, and while there was a lockout going on, he'd go over to play in Italy for a while, before signing with the Hornets. After a few years there, he'd sign with the Bulls and have a few good seasons. His biggest moment there was probably angering Shaq to the point where he took a swing at Miller. Probably better for Miller, he didn't hit him. Miller would get traded to the Pacers with Ron Mercer and then known Ron Artest. And during his first and only complete season with the Pacers, he made his first NBA All-Star game, becoming one of the first undrafted players to be named to the All-Star game alongside with Pistons Ben Wallace, who happened to make it that same year. Following season, Miller was involved in a sign and trade to the Sacramento Kings. It was said he wanted to stay in Indy, but his agent was like, you're not going to see that money Sacramento's offering again. So he went there. He'd make the All-Star game his first year, the second and final All-Star appearance of his career, and he'd end up playing with the Bulls again before wrapping up his career with the Rockets and Timberwolves. Despite his size, he wasn't your typical big man. His rebounding or block numbers really didn't stand out, but he was a great passer and one of the better passers in the time of his playing career. From a big man to a sharpshooter, next 52 on the list, Eric Piatkowski, sniper, lighting it up at the University of Nebraska, earning back-to-back first-team All-Big 8 honors. He'd finished collegiate career in Nebraska second in career points, only behind Dave Hoppin. This led to the Pacers drafting him 15th overall, but he'd right away get shipped off to the Clippers, where he'd spend the majority of his career. He'd have 3 seasons averaging over double digits and a few just under. Once his Clipper days were over, he'd suit up for the Rockets, Bulls, and wrap up his career with the Suns. The Polish Rifle, as he was called, was known for his prolific shooting and obviously for being Polish. He holds 3 Clippers all-time records: free throw percentage, 3-point shooting percentage, and most games played as a Clipper in LA. His 52 is also retired by the University of Nebraska. Last basketball mention for 52, George T. Johnson. He didn't have the most talked about NBA career, but this guy was a human fly swatter. He played with a few different teams in his career: the Warriors, Buffalo Braves, Nets, Spurs, Hawks, and Sonics. He'd win an NBA championship with the Warriors, but he really became a blocking machine once he went to the Nets and Spurs. He'd have 5 straight seasons averaging over 3.1 blocks per game, 3 of those seasons leading the NBA in blocks, and was named to the NBA All-Defensive Second Team once. He had at least 10 block shots in 6 different times in his career. That's crazy. One of the more underrated shot blockers in the history of the NBA. We'll wrap up this lengthy 52 segment here by going to the hockey rink, starting with defenseman Adam Foote. Great player for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, which led to the Quebec Nordiques drafting the Toronto native 22nd overall in the 89 draft. A solid defenseman during his time in Quebec, and when they moved to Colorado, he moved with them. He was an integral part of the 2 Stanley Cup championships in Colorado. For 13 seasons with the Avalanche, Foote signed to join the Columbus Blue Jackets, where his play would lead to him becoming the 4th captain in Blue Jackets history. With his contract set to expire, he was traded back to his old club, where he'd play until retirement. Foote was the last player in the NHL to have suited up for the Quebec Nordiques. He's represented Canada in international play, winning an Olympic gold medal at the '02 Olympics, and he was also a member of the '04 World Championship gold medal team. He's one of only 5 players to have his jersey retired by the Avalanche. His 52 hangs in the rafters along the likes of Ray Bourque, Patrick Waugh, Joe Sakic, and Peter Forsberg. His number 5 is retired by the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds of the OHL. He's currently an assistant coach for the high-flying Vancouver Canucks, and he's the father of current NHL player Cal Foote, who is under investigation for that sexual assault in London, Ontario, alongside 4 other members of the 2018 World Junior team. So a lot to break down in there. You didn't realize so many 52s, eh? Yeah. But we'll go from the mentions to the week we just had. We'll start with the NFL. You're like, what? The NFL's not going on, but there was some news. Unfortunately, some sad news. The NFL Combine's going on, but we have to talk about longtime journalist for ESPN, Chris Mortensen, passed away at the age of 72. Growing up every Sunday watching NFL Countdown, you'd see Mort do his thing. It'd just be part of your Sunday routine. So that's a real bummer. It's unfortunate to hear him pass away there. Rest in peace there, Mort. Huge news in the NFL involving Russell, last name Wilson. The Broncos made the move we all saw coming, but they made it happen. They released Super Bowl winning quarterback Russell Wilson after what I'd say a very disappointing spell in the Mile High City. Right away this move wasn't working under Hackett, and with Sean Payton running the show now, it was only a matter of time. I'm very interested to see where Russell, last name Wilson, ends up, because I think he's still got something in the tank. He said he wants to win 2 more rings. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but you got to be delusional to be a good quarterback in the NFL. And I'm also intrigued to see who Sean Payton wanted to bring at quarterback number 1. You're coming in, you're getting rid of a quarterback, you're running the show. Who's your guy? Let's see. And some other big news in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Bucks. They ended up releasing former Pro Bowl pass rusher Shaq Barrett in what they called a cap space clearing move, which made sense when you'd see they signed Mike Evans to a 2-year, $52 million deal. They had to get that money somewhere. And also, check out some of these running back free agencies on the market right now. Some big names out there. Some players that could really swing it. Saquon Barkley's still not signed. Derrick Henry not signed. Where are these guys going? Why have they not gone anywhere yet? I know the running back position is devalued, but man, these are game changes. And like I said, the Combine is going on in Indianapolis. Some cool scenes. Christian McCaffrey's brother Luke beat CMC's 40-yard dash time. And speaking of 40-yard dash time, Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy ran a 4.21 40-yard dash time, surpassing John Ross's time of 4.22. That's some crazy speed. We'll see how it translates on the field and where he goes in the draft. Just because you've been the fastest doesn't always made you the best. Like, how many people are talking about John Ross right now? I mean, Chris Johnson, the guy who had the record before him, we know what CJ2K could do. We'll go to the footy world. We wrapped up some games following the last episode and some big midweek matches leading to some great weekend play. The FA Cup in the UK, the 5th round of the FA Cup went down. Coventry ended Maidstone United from the National League South Division, ended their surprising run. Championship leaders Leicester City upset Premier League side Bournemouth 1-0, the winner being scored in extra time in that one. Newcastle had to go to penalties to beat championship side Blackburn Rovers, but were able to squeeze it out. Man City absolutely dominated Luton Town. Norwegian Erling Haaland scored 5 goals, 4 of them assisted by Kevin De Bruyne. Chelsea and championship side Leeds had a thrilling match. With the game tied at 2, Chelsea's Conor Gallagher would score the winner in the 90th minute to send Chelsea to the next round. Man United had the ball most of the game in their game against Nottingham Forest, but would get their only goal in the 89th minute when Casemiro would put it into the net. Wolves' Mario Lemina would score 2 minutes into the match, and that'd be the only goal in a 1-0 win over Brighton. Liverpool sent the youngsters out, and they took down champion side Southampton 3-0, with 18-year-old Lewis Kumas scoring and 18-year-old Jayden Dan scoring a brace. Those results set up our FA Cup quarterfinals, taking place not this upcoming weekend, but the one after, the St. Paddy's Day weekend. You have Wolves taking on Coventry, Man City taking on Newcastle, Chelsea and Leicester City, and Man United versus Liverpool. Some really tasty matchups there. Sticking in England, we'll go to the Premier League. Last episode, I was saying how my West Ham had a big match, and I was hoping Brazilian Lucas Paqueta would be back. He was back, and he helped Jared Bowen get his first ever Premier League hat-trick. It was awesome. West Ham beat Brentford 4-2. With the FA Cup fixtures going on, there were no other matches midweek, which brought us to the weekend. And Newcastle picked up a 3-0 win over a Wolves team that could not find the net despite having a lot of possession. After a scoreless first half, it was tough to see which way the London derby between Tottenham and Palace would go. And Eze curled a beautiful free kick into the net to put Palace ahead. And it looked like things were going their way, and then Tottenham just cranked it up. They'd get their goal. A pass would come to Timo Werner, who would hit the back of the net. The 77th minute, and then not even 3 minutes later, Christian Romero's header would swing the game and put them ahead. And then, as the game was winding down, Son, their striking superstar, put the icing on the cake, giving Tottenham the comeback 3-1 win. 3 goals in 11 minutes. Talk about turning the game. Liverpool they've been in so many fixtures lately, involved in everything. They went on the road to take on Nottingham Forest, who also had an FA Cup cup match this week, as I alluded to earlier. And Liverpool dominated possession. They just could not find that goal until, check that, the 9th minute of extra time. Forest were looking to clear it, but were just a little too casual. McAllister stole the ball, put a perfect cross into the box where Darwin Nunez just wanted it more than anyone else, putting it into the net and giving Liverpool that last-second victory. Brentford hosted Chelsea in another London derby. Chelsea would go ahead in the 35th minute with Nicholas Jackson, and then Brentford would respond by 2 second-half goals and take the lead. A scrappy one by Mads Roslev, and then an absolute beauty over-the-head volley by Jon Wissa. In the 83rd minute, a powerful header by Di Sassi would tie the game up at 2, and that's how it would end, a draw for them. West Ham got their second win in a row with a 3-1 win over Everton. That game had Areola stop Beto on a penalty kick. It was a huge save, but then Beto made up for it in the second half with a nice header. But Zuma, who had given up that penalty in the first half, would equalize for West Ham off a corner kick. It looked like things were going to go to a draw, and then the ball came to the Czech man, Thomas Souček, who would score a lovely goal in the first minute of stoppage time, and then the Mexican Edson Alvarez would ice it for West Ham 3 minutes later. Everton were looking to equalize. So huge 3-1 win for West Ham, second in a row here. The other London victors were Fulham taking down Brighton 3-0. Goals by Harry Wilson, Rodrigo Muniz, and Adama Traore were the difference in that one. Aston Villa had 2 first-half goals from Ollie Watkins, who set a new single career personal best with 16 for the Englishman on the season. They went into halftime up 2-0. Then Tahith Chong and Carlton Morris would tie it up in the second half. But then the 89th minute, a back post header by Lucas Digne would put Aston Villa again, and they'd take the win 3-2. Bournemouth would go on the road to take on Burnley, and an early goal by Justin Kluivert and a late one by Semenyo would give Bournemouth the 2-0 win. We had a Manchester derby go down at the Etihad. What a start. Bruno Fernandes would lay it to Marcus Rashford, who just blistered into the net, hit the bottom of the crossbar and in. 8 minutes in, Man U is ahead. But then you could see Man City starting to develop. I don't know what Pep said at halftime, but it pepped them up. 11 minutes in the second half, they'd equalize. Phil Foden would unleash a rocket of his own to beat the keeper and tie it at 1. Then the 80th minute, with City still having tons of the ball, Foden would get his second of the match. A nice little 1-2 1-2 with Alvarez, and that would lead to Foden having a low shot that some say Onana maybe should have had a better chance at, but it beat the keeper and hit the net. And then a dreadful giveaway late by Amrabat led to Haaland getting the ball and scoring, making it 3-1. City of Manchester stay blue, and I have to wear this Man City jersey. You can see how old I was when I bought it, because it was still thomascook.com before Etihad came into town. But yeah, big win for Man City. Man U, it looks so good 8 minutes in. But then things changed, I guess. There was one game left to be played in the week on Monday. Bottom of the table, Sheffield United hosted title hopefuls Arsenal, and it got ugly. It got ugly quick. After 39 minutes, Arsenal were up 5-0. They'd add one more in the second half to win 6-0. A beatdown. So many fans were leaving early. Hate to see it. But that'll bring us to the table. Liverpool leading the league with 63 points. Last year's champs, Man City, just 1 point behind them. And then 1 point behind City is Arsenal now. So it's really tight at the top of the league. Sitting in fourth, you have Aston Villa, who are 5 points ahead of Tottenham, who have a game in hand. We'll fly on a plane to Spain, where there was some Copa del Rey this midweek. You had some second legs. Real Sociedad was hosting Mallorca in the second leg of their matchup. First match was scoreless, so things were equal on aggregate leading into this. The 50th minute, Mallorca would go ahead via Giovanni Gonzalez, but then the 71st, Mikel Oyarzabal would tie things up, leading the penalties. Mallorca would make all theirs. Real Sociedad, not so much, sending Mallorca to the Copa del Rey final for only the fourth time in the club history and the first time since they won the tournament back in 2003. The other semifinal had Athletic Bilbao hosting Atletico Madrid. The hosts had a 1-0 lead on aggregate coming in, and there were some chaotic scenes before the match. Athletic Bilbao fans were causing shit with Atletico fans, few people injured and hospitalized. But once the game started, you got some excitement. The Williams brothers from Ghana, they were the real difference. Nico Williams assisted brother Inaki on his goal. Inaki returned the favor, assisting on Nico's goals. Those first half goals had Athletic Bilbao in the driver's seat, and they'd add another, winning 3-0 in the match, 4-0 on aggregate, sending Athletic Bilbao to another Copa Rey final, their third in 5 years. They've won the tournament the second most times out of any club in Spain. Their 23 wins are just behind only Barcelona at 31. But they have not raised the cup since 83-84, so this should be an exciting final. We're going to have one happy club here. Lots of time until that final takes place. April 6th is the date, Copa del Rey final, Mallorca, Athletic Bilbao. But that was cup play. We'll go to domestic league play in Spain. Last week, match ended with Girona picking up a 3-0 win over Rayo Vallecano, which led us into this weekend's fixtures. You had bottom of the side table, Almeria, going down the 65th minute. They went a man down when Langa picked up a straight red card. 8 minutes later, Celta Vigo would score, and they'd pick up the 1-0 win, distancing themselves from the relegation zone, while poor Almeria sitting at the basement of La Liga, not even double digits on points yet. 2 first-half goals by Moroccan Youssef and Nasseri really had Sevilla sitting in a good place. First-half stoppage time penalty by Andre Silva brought Sociedad back. But Sergio Ramos, he scores a lot of headers, and he'd do the same to make it a 2-goal difference. But again, a stoppage time goal would make it to a 1-goal game. But Sevilla held on, winning 3-2, and giving Real Sociedad another loss. That team's been struggling lately. Villarreal hosted Granada, thumped them 5-1. Norwegian striker Alexander Sorloth got a hat-trick in that one. Atletico Madrid's 2 first-half goals, 1 own goal, and then a goal by Alvaro Morata were enough to cancel out a second-half goal by William Carvalho, as Atletico held on to win 2-1 over Real Betis. In a showdown of tough clubs in Spain, Mallorca would host Girona, and they'd stun the visitors with a 1-0 win. A first-half goal by Jose Capete was enough to give the home side the win, helping Mallorca distance themselves from the relegation zone as well, and also hurting any title dreams Girona might have been having. A lot of fixtures ended in draws. Rayo Vallecano and Cádiz would draw 1-1. Getafe and Las Palmas would play in a goal fest that ended 3-3. Athletic Bilbao hosted Barcelona, and the teams would split a point in a scoreless draw. But the most controversial game of the weekend was between Valencia and Real Madrid. The home side would pounce on the La Liga leaders, with Hugo Duro scoring a header with their first chance of the match. Not even 3 minutes later, they doubled their lead when a disastrous pass by Carvalho would lead to Roman Yaremchuk taking the ball, slotting it home. 2-0 lead. But then deep in the first half stoppage time, a misplay by by Valencia would lead to Vinicius Jr. tapping it in, cutting the lead in half. And then in the 76th minute, Vinicius Jr. would get his brace with a header, tying the game up at 2. Then real deep in the stoppage time, Real Madrid had a corner kick. They passed it around a bit. You could hear the officials whistle. Real Madrid kind of kept playing. Bellingham found the back of the net. The ref was like, hold up, I blew the whistle, causing everyone to go crazy because the match ended at 2-2 rather than a Real Madrid win. People were yelling all kinds of shit. A kerfluffle ensued. Jude Bellingham ended up swearing at the ref, getting a red card for dissent, which suspends him for the next 2 Real Madrid matches, with a potential chance at a third. But I think he'll just be suspended to 2. To wrap up the match week, Osasuna hosted Alaves, and they used a 76-minute goal by Budimir to clinch the 1-0 win. So as we look at the La Liga table, Real Madrid is still leading the league with 66 points. Girona had a chance to make up some ground, so that loss to Mallorca really hurt them. They sit at 59 points. 1 point behind them is Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid is at 55 points in the 4th spot. We'll go from Spain to Italy, the Serie A. There were 2 makeup games this week, both blowouts. Napoli went on the road to face Sassuolo. The home side Ratchet scored in the 17th minute, and you're like, oh, maybe this is our game. But last year's champs responded in a big way. 6 unanswered goals, including a hat-trick by Osimhen, giving them a 6-1 win. And the other match was supposed to be a big showdown. Big teams, Inter Milan and Atalanta, but Inter Milan thumped them 4-0. That led us into some weekend play, which started off with an exciting one. Lazio hosting AC Milan. American Christian Pulisic was off to a great start. He was on the attack, and he almost looked to go out of bounds, but he kept going, prompting Pellegrini to just pull him down, where the ref was like, whoa, dude, second yellow. So Lazio went down to 10 men, and it was a tight game throughout, and despite the man advantage, Provedel was making some big saves, but on this save, the ball would come to Okafor, and he'd put the ball into the net. And, in stoppage time, Lazio's Maricic would foul Leo, prompting the ref to give him a red card. And then minutes later, Pulisic would get fouled again. This time, Guendouzi would pull him down, giving him a red card. So Lazio would finish with only 8 men as they lost 2-1 in this one. Not the best outing for Lazio in that one. Roma would then go on the road, and Roma went on the road and beat Monza 4-1. 4 different goal scorers for the visitors in that one. They've been playing pretty good since they got rid of the chosen one, Jose Mourinho. Daniel De Rossi has them winning 6 of their last 7 Serie A matches. Verona's Swiderski scored a 79th-minute goal to give them a 1-0 win over Sassuolo. Cagliari had a 69th-minute goal by Jakob Janto. That was enough to give them the win over Empoli. Cagliari is fighting to get out of the relegation zone, so that win is huge for them. Bologna made Atalanta's week even worse. After Adomola Lookman put Atalanta up in the first half, 2 Bologna second-half goals, first a penalty by Xerxes, and then a second not even 4 minutes later by Scotsman Lewis Ferguson, completed the comeback for Bologna, giving Atalanta their second Serie A loss in 5 days. Another exciting match had last year's champions Napoli hosting title hopefuls Juventus. Napoli star Kvaratskhelia would put in the home side ahead in the 42nd minute with a nice finish. We wouldn't see another goal until the minute when Chiesa would perfectly find the corner with his low shot, perfectly placed, tying the game up at 1. Osimhen would get fouled in the box. We got VAR involved, and they're like, yep, he was fouled. So they'd get a penalty. Osimhen would step up. His shot would get stopped, but Raspadori would pounce on the rebound, giving Napoli the 2-1 win, and that's how the game would end. Huge win for last year's champs as they're trying to make in the European play, and tough loss for Juventus, who had very slim chances of catching Inter, but this doesn't help. And when you look at how many chances Vlahovic had, he could have had a hat-trick alone in the first half. But hey, it's the way it goes in sports. Big win for Napoli. Like I said, second win in 5 days for them. Some other matches that ended in draws. Torino and Fiorentina played to a 0-0 draw. Frosinone and Lecce would exchange goals in their 1-1 draw. And the match week wrapped up with 2 first-half goals being enough to give Inter Milan the 2-1 win over Genoa. So when you look at the Serie A table, Inter Milan, 15-point cushion over second-place Juventus. AC Milan is 1 point behind Juventus in that third spot. And Bologna, shockingly, rounding out the top 4. You can't give enough credit to the amazing job Thiago Motta has done. What he's doing with that Bologna club's awesome. Roma sit 4 points behind them, and they've been climbing. Like I said, they've been on some pretty good plays late. That brings us to Germany for some German top division. Kicked off with Freiburg hosting Bayern Munich. They get an early goal when Gunter would score 12 minutes in. But then the teenager Tell would equalize in the 35th minute. And other fellow youngster Musiala would put Bayern ahead in the 75th. But in the 87th, Lucas Holler would equalize and that game would end 2-2. Tough result for Bayern as their title hopes seem to just dwindle in front of their eyes. Eintracht Frankfurt would go ahead on a freakish goal. Back pass by defender Gimber to keeper Mueller. Just as he went to kick the ball bounced. I don't know if it was a sprinkler head or what, but it was pretty ridiculous. He'd whiff on the ball. It would go into his own net. And then less than 4 minutes into the second half, Nkunku would double the lead for the visitors. In the 59th, Heidenheim would get one back, but it was too little too late as Frankfurt pulled off the big road win. Dortmund went into the German capital and beat Union Berlin 2-0. Stuttgart went on the road into Wolfsburg, and it was a goal-filled affair. But Stuttgart would hold on to win 3-2. Bochum hosted Leipzig and found themselves up just 7 minutes into the match. They're like, all right, we're feeling good. But then 4 unanswered goals by Leipzig would turn the game on its head, and they'd win 4-1. Bottom of the side table, Darmstadt hosted Augsburg. And much like the Sheffield United Arsenal game, this one got ugly. Augsburg were up 5-0 after just 29 minutes. Some of the goals, dreadful giveaways. It's like, what are you doing? Augsburg would add a sixth in the 84th, and they embarrassed Darmstadt on their home field. After the game, a Darmstadt Ultra, one of their mega fans, would come onto the pitch from the stands and berate the home team in front of everyone for their lackluster effort. Hopefully that inspires them because they're sitting in the basement of the Bundesliga, and it's not looking too good. Cologne hosted Leverkusen as the league leaders hoped to keep their unbeaten run going. And Cologne didn't help themselves when Jan Tellman was given a direct red and the home side was down a man just 14 minutes into the match. That really opened the game up for Leverkusen, and wingbacks Frimpong and Grimaldo would each score, keeping them unbeaten in all competitions. Still, this far into the season, Hoffenheim hosted Werder Bremen to end the weekend. 2 Maximilian Baer goals had the home side ahead. 73rd minute, Marius Butler would get a red card, and that opened the door for Bremen to get a goal back. Well, that's as close as they get as Hoffenheim win at home 2-1. So after 24 matches in the league, Leverkusen sitting atop the league, 64 points, 20 wins, 4 draws, no losses. That's crazy. Bayern Munich 10 points behind the leaders in second. Stuttgart just 4 points behind Bayern. And Dortmund is in fourth, 1 point ahead of fifth place Leipzig. A little bit of French Cup action this midweek. You had some Coupe de France quarterfinal matches. Lyon would need penalties to knock out fellow Ligue 1 side Strasbourg. Valenciennes of League 2 beat FEC Rouen of the French third division. Someone's Cinderella journey had to end in that one. Rennes beat up on fourth tier club Le Puy-Feu 43. Kind of glad they got knocked out because I did not want to try to say that name again. And then next week, we'll have our last quarterfinal matchup with PSG hosting Nice. That should be a nice matchup. Those midweek fixtures led us into some League 1 play on the weekend. Lackluster kind of start to the weekend. You had this big marquee matchup between Monaco and PSG, and it would end in a scoreless draw. Lille went on the road to beat Reims, and Canadian Jonathan David scored the winner in that one. Marseille dominated Clermont Foot 5-1. Toulouse would go down early to Nice, only 8 minutes in, but 2 second-half goals within 4 minutes of each other gave Toulouse the huge comeback surprise win. Brestois picked up a 1-0 win over Le Havre. Metz went on the road and absolutely stunned host Nantes. 2 second-half goals less than 2 minutes apart gave Metz the huge win and helps them in their relegation battle. Lorient went on the road and they beat Rennes 2-1. Lens went on the road and beat Lyon 3-0. I did not see that coming. Montpellier and Strasbourg would also play to a 2-2 draw. So you look at the French league table, it's pretty one-sided. PSG still have a big 9-point lead over Brestois. Monaco are 4 points behind Brest in the third spot, and Lille round out the top 4, jumping over Nice to get into that top 4. Champions League, gotta hype it up real quick. We went domestics. Let's talk some European Champions League real quick. Second leg of Champions League matches going down this week. Bayern Munich host Lazio down 1-0 on aggregate. I mentioned struggling Real Sociedad. They'll need a huge effort as they host PSG down 2-0 on aggregate. Real Madrid hosts Leipzig with a 1-0 advantage. Man City hosts Copenhagen with a 3-1 advantage. I see Man City, Real Madrid, and PSG advancing, but that other match could be tricky. Lazio do have the 1-0 advantage, and Bayern Munich hasn't looked like the Bayern Munich of old lately. That game could really dictate how the rest of Bayern Munich's season goes. Quick Europa League mention because I said Champions League. We'll talk the younger cousin Europa here. They have the first leg of round 16. We had the playoffs go through them, so now we're in the real deal. Some matches here. You got Sporting hosting Atalanta, Roma hosting Brighton. That should be an intriguing one. Sparta Praha hosting Liverpool. Like I said, Liverpool's involved in so many fixtures. Karabag hosting Leverkusen. Now, wouldn't that be something? This small Azerbaijan side could give Bayern Leverkusen their first loss in their unbeaten season. I mean, I doubt it, but who knows? No, I didn't mean Bayern Leverkusen. Sorry. AC Milan hosts Slavia Praha. SC Freiburg hosts my West Ham. That should be a good one. Benfica hosts Rangers, and Marseille hosts Villarreal. So, yeah, some really tasty matchups there. And big news involving former World Cup winner Paul Pogba announced that he's been banned from playing footy for 4 years for using performance-enhancing drugs. He last suited up earlier this season for Juventus before picking up a season-ending injury to his thigh. Quick mention of some North American footy. MLS is back. Woo-hoo! Some big events in the league included that Winter Wonderland match between Real Salt Lake and LAFC where people were pissed of all the snow. I thought it looked cool. I played in snow. It's fun. Inter Miami throttled Orlando City with Luis Suarez picking up 2 goals, 2 assists. Lionel Messi scoring a brace as well. And how about TFC? They started the season undefeated with a draw against Cincinnati and a win over New England. So it's cool to have some professional footy going back on this side of the world. Quick mention of baseball. I know it's spring training, but it is in full swing. Lots to get excited for. Shohei Ohtani blasted a home run in his new Dodgers colors. Some more free agency signings. Shortstop Brandon Crawford's leaving San Francisco after 13 seasons, 4 Gold Gloves, and 2 World Series to join the St. Louis Cardinals. The Giants made a quick move to get some replacements in, bringing former Blue Jay third baseman Matt Chapman on a 3-year, $54 million deal. He won his 4th career Gold Glove last season in Toronto, and he'll be a big loss to Toronto. It'll be a nice welcome to the Giants. The regular season's still a few weeks away, so we got some more time to get ready for ball there. We'll go to the NHL and the hockey world. The Nashville Predators, they're the hottest team in the NHL right now, 8 winners of 8 in a row. Looking at the schedule, they could have 12 in a row by next episode. They wanted to keep the good times rolling. Agreed to a 3-year contract extension with the forward Tommy Novak. The Preds are approaching that big 3 in the Central Division. Winnipeg still has a slight lead over Dallas in the division, and the Avalanche are not very far behind. The Oilers, they go on streaks. They're on a 4-game winning streak right now, and they passed the Golden Knights in the Pacific. They have just that Western Conference leading Vancouver Canuck team in front of them. Those same Canucks just extended Elias Pettersson on an 8-year contract extension as well. And the Flames are not giving up on their season despite trading Chris Tanev to the Dallas Stars. They quietly won 5 games in a row. And hey, shout out to the Coyotes. They've won 2 in a row after losing 14 in a row. So that's a nice little turnaround. The Blackhawks and Sharks both holding on the long losing streak. Chicago losers of 6 straight. San Jose losers of 7. Brings us out east, a few more moves. Struggling New Jersey Devils decide to part ways with head coach Lindsey Ruff. Sticking in the Metropolitan, the Rangers still lead atop that division despite losing their last game in a shootout to the Leafs. But it is said they're keeping Jonathan Quick around, so that's good for them. The Hurricanes are not too far behind the Rangers, and my Flyers have a little more distance to make up, but they're there. And don't count out Patrick Waugh's Islanders either, winners of the last 3. And I mentioned the Leafs, their great play has continued, and they're creeping up in the Atlantic. It'd be hard for them to catch the Panthers right now, who they're also on a 4-game winning streak and find themselves leading the division. They have a small lead over the Bruins, and with around 20 games to go in the NHL season, there's plenty of shuffling ready to go in the standings here. And this takes us to our current stat leaders. Tampa Bay's Nikita Kucherov still leading the league in points. Colorado's Nathan McKinnon just nipping at his heels. And don't count out Edmonton's Connor McDavid, who is just under that 100-point mark. Goal leader is still Toronto's Austin Matthews. He's at 53. The 2 players behind him have at least broken the 40-goal mark. You have Florida's Sam Reinhart and Edmonton's Zach Hyman, both tied at 42. Number 1 overall pick, Connor Bedard, still leads the rookies in points, and he's tied with Minnesota's Marco Rossi on goals. This brings us to the racetrack. Formula One, it's back. First race of the season in Bahrain. It was an eventful race, but not really at the front of the pack. Max Verstappen carried his dominant for him from last season into this season, as he won this race by 22 seconds. It's crazy. He wasn't really challenged at all. His teammate Sergio Perez finished in second, with the two Ferraris behind them, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz raced great. It's hard to think that he's the guy leaving Ferrari for Lewis Hamilton. But, someone's got to go, I guess. The most dramatic part of the race, really, was Yuki Tsunoda in that fancy new RB car instructed to let Danny Ricciardo pass him. Tsunoda was pretty close to passing Kevin Magnussen when this idea came up. So he was obviously frustrated, screaming, "Why now? Why now?" And Yuki's not really a calm dude. And Danny's like, "Whatever, man, let him do his thing." He eventually let Danny pass him. But then you could hear Yuki bitching about how slow Danny was, saying, "Why doesn't he speed up? Why'd you make him pass me?" It's good drama. You love to see it on the first race back, especially because there was no drama at the front of the race. I'm hoping we get a little more parity. I don't want to just see Max Verstappen collect trophies all year. I don't know. We'll see what's up. We got another race coming up right away. We're heading to Saudi Arabia for the next race that's coming up this upcoming weekend, which brings us to some college hoops. Men's college ball. North Carolina started the week off with another ACC win, this time against Miami. Baylor went on the road and beat a tough TCU team in Big 12 play. Also in Big 12 play, Houston beat Cincinnati. BYU went into Kansas and beat up on the Jayhawks. The Mountain West, San Diego State beat San Jose State. Utah State would need overtime to survive against Fresno State. And one of the most exciting games of the early week was a wild buzzer beater by Reed Shepherd in a Kentucky road win over Mississippi State. Some good SEC play there, and it really came down to the wire, literally. And as the week went on, more great matches in the SEC. South Carolina would hold on for a win over Texas A&M. Florida beat Missouri. Alabama crushed Ole Miss, and Tennessee narrowly beat Auburn in a battle of ranked teams. In the Big East, Marquette crushed Providence, and Creighton beat up on Seton Hall. Iowa State and Arizona each won conference games as well over Oklahoma and Arizona State, respectively. And then we had a shock leading into the weekend as ranked Dayton lost to Loyola Chicago in Atlantic 10 play. How about that? Then on the weekend, we had some juicy matches, especially in the Big 12. It's been full of great basketball all year. Houston won a close one in Oklahoma. Baylor held court, giving Kansas their second loss in a row. Iowa State would beat UCF in their conference as well. Big Ten, Canadian Zach Edey had another huge game, 32 points, 11 rebounds for the very huge man as Purdue took out Michigan State. Illinois beat Wisconsin and other Big Ten play. Tennessee continuing to look awesome in the SEC, holding on to beat fellow ranked Alabama. Back-to-back wins over ranked teams for Tennessee, great for the Volunteers. Auburn beat Mississippi State by double digits. Kentucky and Arkansas were trying to break the scoreboard. Kentucky won 111-102 in that one. South Carolina picked up another win over ranked Florida in conference play. Duke and UNC picked up wins in the ACC over Virginia and NC State. How about Creighton continuing to punch up from their ranking, this time upsetting Marquette in the Big East. And also in the Big East, UConn continued to look like a best team, beating up Seton Hall. And takes us to the women's side. Lots going on there. Big Pac-12 matchups. UCLA holding on to beat Colorado. As the week continued, the favorites started to do more of their thing. Indiana, Baylor, and Creighton all won in conference play over Northwestern, Cincinnati, and Xavier, respectively. Oklahoma State upset West Virginia in Big 12 play. And as the week went on, we'd get big matches in the Big 10. Ohio State would beat up on Michigan. Iowa would smash Minnesota by 48. Then back in the Big 12, Oklahoma held on for the upset over Texas. Iowa State beat ranked Kansas State. And like I said, if you haven't watched Audi Cricks play yet, watch her. She's phenomenal. And UConn, Gonzaga, UNLV, they all won conference matches, beating Villanova, Portland, and Boise State. Then leading into the weekend, SEC powerhouses continued to do thing. Number one ranked South Carolina thumped Arkansas by 37. LSU dominated Georgia. The Pac-12, Utah beat Washington State. Colorado beat Washington. UCLA beat Arizona State. And USC barely escaped Arizona with a win in double overtime. Stanford beat a fellow ranked Oregon State. Notre Dame hosted Virginia Tech and surprised the Hokies with a double-digit win. In the ACC, NC State held on to beat fellow ranked Syracuse, which brought a wild weekend with some good games. Not so much in the Pac-12. Stanford crushed Oregon. USC beat up Arizona State. UCLA beat Arizona by 20, and Oregon State beat Cali. All big games. one-sided routes. Then you had some shocking results in the conference. Washington State taking down Colorado. 5th loss in 6 games for the Lady Buffs. Not what you want to be doing at this time of the year. Washington Huskies beat up on Utah. Like, Utah is so up and down for me. It's hard to decide what they're going to do in the tournament play. The Big 12, Texas trounced BYU, and Kansas State did the same to Texas Tech. Kansas took the upset win over Oklahoma, and West Virginia bounced back from their loss to beat TCU. UConn flexed on Providence in some Big East play as well. Sunday had probably the biggest news of the week, though. Number 6 Iowa beat number 2 Ohio State. But in that game, Caitlin Clark scored 35 points. But more importantly, she passed Pistol Meat Maravich, you might remember from episode 44, for the all-time NCAA scoring record. Huge. As I said earlier in the week, Caitlin Clark announced this is her last season as Iowa, as she's going to the WNBA. Indiana Fever of the number 1 overall pick, so we might see her combined with Aaliyah Boston. But anyway, also in the Big Ten, Indiana would beat Maryland. South Carolina, number 1 team in the country, went to 29-0 as they took down Tennessee. LSU won in the SE as well, beating Kentucky. The ACC, Notre Dame took down Louisville, and NC State thumped Wake Forest. Virginia surprised Virginia Tech, giving the Hokies their 2nd straight loss. Creighton would beat Seton Hall in the Big East, and Baylor beat OK State in Big 12 play. So like I said, a wild week of college hoop. That was the regular season coming to the end. We got tournament play all week. These conference tournaments are going to be rounding up, leading us into the NCAA tournament. It's March. It's wild. Get mad. It's a way to feel, man. It's the alliterative best name for a tournament. March Madness. I love it. Some melancholy news in WWE. Got to mention quick. Beloved figure in the wrestling community, Michael Jones, better known as Virgil. You might remember him hanging out with Ted DiBiase. He died on Wednesday, unfortunately, at the age of 61 years old. So, like I said, a crazy week in sports. This brings us to the short of the week. It's crazy-ass blizzard going on in Saskatoon. It's been a shit show. Drifts everywhere. Finally made it in the work this morning. Not after shoveling a path all the way to the street. Hoping you don't get stuck. This reminds us all of that big storm in 2007. A much different Ren City in that point in life. I just remember the relief I had when I was called and said, hey, you don't have to come into work today. That meant, hey, day off, baby. But you checked out the smokables situation. Not very good. You're like, shit. So then I got a hold of buckets. I believe I mentioned the legendary buckets on this show. The man who would hide various buckets around town so he could smoke weed out of them. If you're unfamiliar with the bucket, you cut the 2-liter bottle near the bottom. You get a slightly bigger container filled with water. Get a bowl. Submerge it, and as you light and lift, it creates a little vacuum to fill this with smoke. Science. Anywho, me and Buckets set up a little hash pickup in Warman. You had to walk across Warman to get it. It looked like Hoth outside from Star Wars, but we made it. And I know, Warman's a pretty big city now, I'm talking about when it was a town, when it had a different status. And it's not the longest walk, but in a blizzard, yeah, it's kind of long. It makes it interesting, at least. We'd eventually get through Hoth, get to the planet, grab the hash, obviously try it, stopping at various checkpoints to just get out of the cold for a hot second. It was a whiteout. You could not see shit. But you did what you had to do. Get back to my parents' house, hit the hash, in the buckets, in the bong, any kind of hash way you want. It shows with the right motivation you can get through any storm, and you don't just need hash to motivate. Just saying. Other things can motivate you evolving. But yeah, that's the quick story for today. I mean, stay out of this blizzard unless you got to get hash, I guess. But I recommend you walk, don't drive. Roads are fucked. But hey, this episode's a little uploaded later than usual. I blame the storm. Thank you, shoveling. But yeah, that's it. We threw down sports and shorts of sorts. Thanks for tuning in. If you want NBA content, go to the YouTube page. Check out all my NBA recaps on there, on Spotify. Do what you gotta do, guys. Stay safe out there. Red City out.